All right, we will go ahead and begin the regular meeting here at 7:05. And we do have Director Benevento on the line by phone. So we have everybody here tonight. We'll begin the meeting with student and staff recognitions, and I'll ask Dr. Fagan, the superintendent, and Carrie Mendoza, our newest board member, and Kevin Larson, our newly elected vice president, to present the awards this evening.
Okay. The Board of Education is proud to recognize the achievements of our excellent staff and students, including some great chefs this evening. Let's start by having the ProStart team come on up. So members of the ProStart team, if you guys would like to just come up here and stand, please. As you may know, the ProStart program was developed by the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation to teach high school students about everything from food preparation and hospitality to customer service and business management. Every year, all of the teens' hard work culminates in a big competition known as the ProStart Invitational and Cisco Hospitality Cup, which is a little like an Iron Chef competition. Let's take a look at some of the action from this year.
It's a great event, an absolutely wonderful event.
Honor teams 4, 5, and 6.
I was having a heart attack, like on the inside. I was freaking out.
Game time, game time, game time.
If you make it look like you're calm, then it'll help you a little bit.
Jen, cooking, teams 4, 5, and 6.
Watching them perform today was just absolutely wild.
Wheels are too thin, and what we found is that they were breaking when we were cooking them, and we couldn't flip them. So the parchment paper just allows us to cook them until they're solid.
They did such a great job. Everything they rehearsed, they hit the points they needed to. I mean, Nick is fabricating fish. Serena is doing cast iron seared buffalo short ribs. Maddie's doing glazed beets. Haley's doing tuiles. Normally tuiles are in an oven. She's doing them on cast iron. I mean, the level of difficulty was crazy.
It went great. Everything turned out good, and we got all of our stuff on our plates. Our presentation was solid, and we got enough time, so it went perfect.
Oh, congratulations to our kids. As I said, I couldn't be prouder as a principal.
I'm proud. I'm so proud to watch them compete and to watch them in action. You should be super proud because that was awesome.
In only 3 years, the DCSD team, which is based at Thunder Ridge High School, has grown tremendously, placing higher and higher each time. This year, the team came in first place overall and third in the management portion of the competition. Congratulations to the entire team, including Thunder Ridge High School ProStart teachers, Ariane Roberts and Katie Washke, the team's mentor, DCSD Executive Chef Jason Morse, and Principal Carol Jennings. Congratulations. And have each one of you introduce yourself so we know who all is here tonight.
All right, I'm Nick Sabina, and I'm a senior at Thunder Ridge.
I'm Alex Flavin, I'm also a senior at Thunder Ridge.
I'm Jordan Gonzalez, I'm also a senior at Thunder Ridge.
Addison Gillen, same as them.
Serena Smith, I'm a junior at Thunder Ridge.
Erin Murphy, and I'm a junior at Thunder Ridge. I'm Ariane Roberts, one of the ProStart instructors.
I'm Katie Washke, one of the ProStart instructors as well.
Jason Morris, ProStart mentor.
We already know them. And so what is it that you have here?
This is the Cisco Cup that we came in first place for. This combined the management as well as the culinary team and gave us the first place award.
Congratulations.
And I see you have one also.
This is the same thing, but the black.
Oh.
All right, is this one different? Okay.
Yes. This is a plaque for the management team who we given their place.
Congratulations to all of you. Thanks for being here tonight, and well done. You're going to need a new trophy case.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yes.
We're going to do this twice. Here we go. You smile. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3.
Okay, congratulations. We need Chef Jason to stay and all of you are excused. Thank you for coming. And while we're on the topic of culinary kudos, we would like Chef Jason to stay here. And we'd like to bring up DCSD Nutrition Services DC Catering Manager, Kim Wolfram. Is Kim here tonight? She's not able to make it. And Nutrition Services Director, Brent Craig. And I did see Brent, so I know he's here. Okay. Chef Jason and Kim teamed up with the Colorado Agriculture Commissioner, John Salazar, and pulled off a mouth-watering second-place finish in the recent Colorado Ag Day Farm to Fork competition at the state capitol. The trio produced killer beef short ribs using a variety of top-secret spice rubs. As part of a National Agriculture Day, Colorado Ag Day highlights agriculture's value to our state economy, emphasizes the importance of buying local, and provides an opportunity to share the bounty agriculture creates with those in need. Congratulations to DCSD's amazing nutrition services team for an excellent showing in the Farm to Forks competition this year. Well done.
One, two, three. One more time. 1, 2, 3.
All right, congratulations. You're going to find a theme tonight, by the way. Next, we would like to honor Rocky Heights Middle School 7th grade student Lila Padden, who is also quite an expert in the kitchen. All right, about 3 years ago, when she was only 10, Lila was inspired to start her own business after a visit to Young Ameritown, a hands-on experience in free enterprise for elementary students. With a little prompting from a 5th grade teacher and some help from a crowdsourced investors at firstfunder.com, she was able to bring her cupcakes to the public. Lila's vision, hard work, and delectable baking have grown the business and won her the 2012 Colorado Young Entrepreneurs Award from the Young American Center for Financial Education, the 2012 Rockies Venture Club Colorado Capital Conference Youth Entrepreneurship Award, and the 2012 $1 Million Butterflies Top Entrepreneur Award. Recently, Lila and her business got the attention of NBC's Today Show. She was one of only 4 kids to win the show's Today's Future Stars of Tomorrow contest, where she appeared live on the Today Show in March. We have a clip.
Monica, good morning to both of you guys.
Good morning.
So Lila, at 13, how did you know you had this passion for baking?
It's just my grandma. She would always bring treats over to my house when she came to visit, and I really wanted to make treats just like that, and so I developed a passion for baking.
And you're selling 30 dozen cupcakes a month. Are you surprised at her success, Monica?
Not at all, no. She is just a very driven child. We're very proud of her.
And a talented one as well.
Randy says it keeps going, but you get, so we probably have this posted for people who would like to see the whole clip. But so how was it being on the Today Show, I have to ask?
It was really fun, and I had a lot of fun in New York. It was just really fun.
So are you planning on continuing with your cupcake business?
Yes, I want to continue it for as long as I have the passion for it.
Great. Well, congratulations. Very proud. That's a lot of awards.
Thank you.
Good job. Wow.
Did you bring any samples?
Don't worry about it. He's just kidding. Okay. Finally, and off of our previous topic a little bit here, the Board of Education would like to recognize one of our librarians who received a big honor from National Geographic. Thunder Ridge High School librarian Paula Busey. Paula, are you here? Please come up. And a Maasai warrior named Samuel were selected as Travelers of the Year by National Geographic's Traveler magazine. Paula was so impressed with the warrior during a safari that she invited him to meet her students in Colorado. It created an amazing global learning opportunity for students at Thunder Ridge High School and several other schools in the area. The warrior was also able to share his expertise in wildlife conservation, as well as the history, culture, and challenges of the Maasai people. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our awards for this evening.
So get that yet?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you.
We'll get together for that second part.
All right. So now we just have the stalwarts remaining. Y'all can move up a little bit if you want to. All right, next is the superintendent reports. What do we have this evening, Dr. Fagan?
Tonight we have an update on the Douglas County School District Balanced Assessment System, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Sina Morgan. Dr. Morgan and her team are the leaders of this project in the district, which is a pretty significant project. Their work in assessment is actually unique in the country and very far ahead. Recently, Dr. Morgan sent me a newspaper clipping. I don't know if she'll talk about this at all. And she said, and they were talking about what assessment needed to look like for students, and she was saying, we're doing this right here. So hopefully Cinnamon and Randy are gonna let the authors know. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sina Morgan.
There you go. Thanks for having me tonight. I wanted to come forward and share with you the progress that we've made with our balanced assessment system. And so moving forward through reminding us of the district improvement plan overall and the strategic work that we've been doing and the progress we've made. So we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and so this is one small part of it. When we're looking at the strategic plan and the priorities within the plan, the balanced assessment system lives within system performance, but it influences the entire system as a whole, so it influences the other priorities as well. The intention of the system performance priority is to assess authentically and to evaluate the entire system. We want to make sure that in the opportunity of providing lots of choice, that we're holding choice accountable. We also want to make sure that when we say we're going to have a world-class education, that we're able to stand up to that in the scrutiny of evaluation. When we're looking at system performance priority, we're looking at the system as a whole, measuring every level of the system, and today's update is about student performance and the balanced assessment system role in that. We had three primary projects that we were focusing on. The first is the schools were doing the work of their balanced assessment systems at the site level. They've made a tremendous progress in enhancing their balanced assessment systems at every school. Schools now will have the ability to produce a student body of evidence that includes a look at the students' progress as they go and a final evaluation of their mastery of outcomes. That body of evidence will then be utilized in an educator performance level. Next year, the state legislation around educator effectiveness rolls out, and so SITE, the teacher evaluation system, will have 50% of that component focused on student performance. So the balanced assessment system will be utilized, and teachers will be able to pull out of that system to build a teacher body of evidence. We've actually had a Standard 6 task force made up of hundreds of teachers who are providing input into that system and being able to provide the direction of how an art teacher's body of evidence would look different from a math teacher's body of evidence, that would look different from a fourth grade teacher's body of evidence. It's been very interesting work. A lot of, the teachers would leave at the end of those meetings very exhausted because a lot of cognitive demand in the work, but they did a great job. The second critical component of the balanced assessment system is our own assessment development. So we've been developing interim assessment items, reading, math, science, social studies, and development in writing. We built interims that could actually measure growth from 2nd all the way through 12th. So as we develop a stable scale, we'll be able to track progress across years. We are rolling forward into next year in bringing in performance assessment. So in our current interim assessment item bank, we have what we call mini performance, which are called constructive response kind of items, where they do small responses. Performance tasks actually require an extensive amount of critical thinking and creativity on the parts of the students and their responses, the ability to communicate their decisions, and we are utilizing in our first model of performance assessment the college and work readiness assessment model, and they actually have performance tasks that connect a scenario directly to either college or career life. So this is a sample, and this is about a student playing the role as an intern for a senator, and they would actually have to research for that senator and provide a recommendation to the senator about this particular scenario. So the other thing about this model that we find appealing is that at the bottom is the list of resources the students are given to do their research. They're not given everything they need, or they're given too much. They try to avoid, this model tries to avoid what they call the sitcom model, where everything's nicely tied up by the end of 30 minutes. So this model is actually creating the dissonance for students to really have to think about, do I have all the information I need, or do I need all this information they gave? So it's an exciting model, and we're looking forward to teaching our system about this kind of performance assessment. The third component that we had in the balanced assessment system work is a technology assessment platform. And when I've shared with you before, I've said that this is, to me, is one of the most critical points. It's unfair to be asking teachers to do this amount of assessment work and looking at data in this very personalized way if they don't have an efficient way to do that, the tools they need. We've spent 2 years looking for a tool. I describe this as I started out with where we are and what we need, and now I have where we are, what we need next year, and what we need as soon as we can find it. A lot of the systems have vision videos. They say, this is where we want to be. And I ask, so when are you going to have that ready? And they say in about 2 years. So hopefully we can develop faster than that. This is the assessment technology platform that we have selected. We had a pilot this year of 3 companies, and we evaluated all of the companies based on the requirements we needed. We selected the best company that was able to meet our required state, which is going into next year. This is just a sample of a dashboard. This would be a principal's view. There will be a dashboard for teachers, there will be a dashboard for parents, and there will be a dashboard for students. So every level of the system will be able to access the data in real time. The data will be live. And so if a teacher gives an assessment and the assessment is given online, that assessment data feeds right into all of the dashboards that that assessment data is relative to. When we're looking at the entire system, the balance assessment system is critical because the balance assessment feeds into the rest of the system. So it was very important that we, by the end of this year, had everything set and ready to go. And I'm happy to report that we are there. Any questions?
You have one, Director Larson.
Thanks, Dr. Morgan. So how exactly, so all of those things in real time, how much do the teachers have to set up, or what is the architecture so that when an assessment's given, it's all implemented in there? I know there's things as simple as, or maybe not so simple, as a grade book and other things. There's setup time where you've got to enter things. How easy is this setup to?
One of our requirements was that teachers will only enter something once. So if they already use Infinite Campus as their gradebook, then that's where they enter. And then we would pull the data out of there into the system. if it's a school that has decided they want to utilize this platform where they keep all of their data, and there's a transcript issue on Infinite Campus where this data needs to get back into Infinite Campus to be on a transcript, then we would technologically push it back. So that was a top priority, was the teachers would only enter information once. There are multiple options for them as far as assessments. So there are assessments that they've already built, and they can just continue to utilize those assessments. There's an ability for them to actually print pre-coded, student pre-coded answer keys, and then the students would just fill those in, and they scan it into the system, and it pulls that data back in for them. There's also an item bank in the system, so they can build assessments with pre-built items, and they also can build their own items if they want. So, and there's about 10 different types of items they can build, all the way from the traditional multiple choice all the way down to a very in-depth rubric that would rate a piece of writing.
So the pilot is completed,
We've evaluated, we've selected, yes.
And so now this will go district-wide for the 13-14 year?
Mm-hmm.
And how much training or degree of training will the teaching staff need then in implementing, or is it as simple as now that you can put it in your grade book, it's there?
Well, it'll be there, and so the rollout will be similar to the rollout of the school year. So the first set of data that will be accessible to the teachers and the principals and the system will be the state assessment data, because that's what comes out first. And so that will be the first level of training, is how to log into the system and access that data. We've made it very clear to the technology platform company that it needs to be as familiar as the current system they use. And it's real time, so they're able to do a bit more with it, but they can start at the level of comfort they have. We also have support at every site where teachers will be the power users in a sense. They've already been on the system this year, and they can continue to support their colleagues in that way. Then we'll roll out the next phase, so that by the end of the year, the expectation is not that at the beginning of the year, their entire balance assessment system is familiar and they're able to get at the click of a button. By the end of the year, they'll be familiar with each component of the balance assessment system. And that will be the point where it becomes very critical to the teachers to be able to then really determine which assessment data goes into their body of evidence.
You anticipate, as this gets used more widely this year, there'll be feedback and tweaks and things that'll modify the next year's version.
Yep. And we've asked them if we can do an early turn on, which means that we're going to have early training for any schools that want to have training now, and go into that way they can access it during the summer, and they can begin to become familiarized with the system now.
Great, thank you.
And just a couple of questions about the development of it. So how many teachers have we had involved in Douglas County in developing this system? Right.
Well, each of the components have had teachers involved. So in the first project, the balance assessment enhancement work, we've had about approximately 100 teachers or more involved in actually being the representative at their site for helping them understand the balance assessment system model. So they've helped the enhancement process. And then the interim assessment development process, we've had approximately 300 teachers involved in the different content areas in developing items. We also have opportunities for teachers to be involved in kind of 1 day, 2 day kind of opportunities. For example, the scoring of the interim assessments will be in June, and so we open that up to teachers to come and be trained and score the assessments. So we'll continue to be having a flow of teachers who have that ability to be involved in the development process. Next year we'll have 2 teachers per site who will be involved with the performance assessment work. So that will roll out in that development process. And then in the technology platform, we've had multiple schools that have been piloting with power users at every school. And so we've had approximately 100 teachers involved with that throughout the 2 years of the pilot system. And the other part, which I'm so thankful for, is the teachers who've been involved with the teacher evaluation portion of this work, because it's been so important to have their input in what is valid for a teacher body of evidence, for them to be evaluated on their impact on student performance. So we've added over 200 teachers involved with that. So overall, if we added that all up, it'd be around 500.
So this is a system unique to Douglas County, designed for Douglas County by Douglas County teachers.
Especially the balanced assessment system, the law has requirements that are generalistic, and then we're able to be flexible in the way that we tailor the law to fit Douglas County. So in each component of the system that we've been building, we've been able to tailor it to the needs of the students and the teachers, and that has been our mantra. They get tired of me saying, students, number one, teachers, number two, law, and everything else, number three.
Right, and so you hit upon an important point, is that every district is required to have some type of new system.
Absolutely.
And there is a state system that's been developed, correct?
The state doesn't have a balanced assessment system. They've been supporting districts in being able to build. They are collaborating with JEFCO on a system that will be offered to districts called In Bloom, and that's been in the media. I've seen it in several different articles. So that will be an opportunity for really small districts that just don't have the resources to be able to build their own. They can opt in, or a district that is in line with the system that is built in that model that can opt in. But there's no expectation that everyone's on one system. It's actually the opposite. They want it to be tailored to the district's needs and desires.
Yes.
My understanding is that the state program, which is still being developed, has cost tens of millions of dollars to develop. Is that correct?
So we could be talking about PARC, which is the future state assessment of the Common Core, which is about, I believe the governor told me, $24 million in appropriations per year once it begins. Or the other thing you may be thinking of is that perhaps the development of the teacher evaluation instrument that the state took as a result of Senate Bill 191. I don't know that it cost anything though, but it had, I think it has 181 checkboxes, and Bloom Board is working with them on that piece. We have SITE, which is, in our view, more specific, more succinct, fair to teachers and leaders, and in crosswalks to their instrument, which is all the requirement is.
So, I think ours is simpler, not 30 pages, double-spaced, in terms of the site, and has been done in a much more cost-efficient manner than the state level effort. For me, when I heard the superintendent's remarks about, which she's been making since she's been here, about creativity as really where we want to be in terms of our students, because that's the kind of learning that is lifelong as opposed to rote memorization, which is committed to short-term memory parts of the brain. The way I've sort of translated that is the metaphor of 1492, and that is, we can all memorize that Christopher Columbus came here in 1492, and I guess I still remember that, so I've retained it, but it's sort of a finite bit of learning. And I've used the metaphor of what we're really interested in is maybe things like, what if Columbus had gone to India, which is what he thought he was doing? What would that path of history not taken look like? And asked our students to flex their creativity muscles, their collaboration muscles, work with other students to gather information about what that alternative history might have looked like, to communicate both orally and in writing in ways that are persuasive elegant, and to think critically, and to discern what is useful information from that which is not. That's learning. That's the kind of learning that's going to be preparing our kids for the 21st century, not the finite memorization of a datum. How does this system capture that complex kind of learning?
Well, the beauty of it is the law actually supports us in that direction. So in SB 212, there's a clear message that performance assessment is valued, and when created with validity and connection to clearly articulated outcomes, that assessment data is part of a body of evidence that's very valuable. So because we have the legislative support to be able to do that, we have a lot of flexibility in the building out of the balanced assessment system to really value performance assessment. And we have teachers across the district who already do this really, really well and create high level of demonstration of learning for their students. Their concern was, will that be of value when I'm being judged on my students' performance, or will it be an assessment that's external to what I do? Because if that's the case, then that's about my job. So what we've been very clear about in the development of the balanced assessment system, and then in the development of the teacher body of evidence, is absolutely that assessment is valued, and we have a lot of research that we can validate and provide the technical rigor behind it that will then also make it stand up against that scrutiny. So we've put a lot of emphasis on don't change quality practice, don't focus down, keep focusing on those high-level outcomes and really look at creativity, critical thinking. And the sample that I shared with you, those are the types of really connect that performance assessment to the real world, to college experience, to any kind of passion or innovation that students and teachers collaborate on, and that will, students will demonstrate their learning at a higher level in that case. And they don't tie as much to an external assessment that they don't understand how it connects to them. So we've given a lot of motivation to the system to do that. Their concern is that at some point along the way they're going to be told, yeah, that's all been well and good, but we're going to focus over here on these external assessments. So we're putting our word behind them that no, that's not the case. You truly can help your students demonstrate their learning at a much higher level, and we are building a system that will support that and value it and stand behind
it. Any other questions? Director Silverthorne.
I work with assessment systems for part of my 9-to-5 job, so this is very interesting to me. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about the software, the system. You know, sometimes with systems like that you have data integrity issues. How do we plan to overcome that? What are the costs? Who is the vendor and what is the system? That sort of thing.
So the company that we are contracted with that received the highest ratings on the evaluation process is called Adrenaline Communications, and they have a platform called EDEMS. And so this system is a platform that holds data and then has the business intelligence on top of it to manipulate the data in the ways that we want it demonstrated. They have within the platform a tool that can build the assessment, that can house already existing items, and it's a very, I don't know what the technology term is for it, you probably do, but it has great interconnectivity with other systems, so it talks well to others, it plays well with others, and so it can draw data from Infinite Campus, which is our student management system. It will be able to work with any other system that we need it to, and they are rolling forward enhancements that we are requesting based on the fact that it's a smart business decision for them because it enhances it for their other clients. And so the relationship we have with them is going to be able to benefit are moving forward and being able to offer a system that all users can access in a pretty user-friendly way, but also have a lot of sophistication to the way that it's able to manipulate data.
I'm sorry, did you, what, the cost associated with it, would you happen to know that? Or?
I do. So the cost of the platform is, with the item bank within it, is $6 per student. We've done a lot of analysis of the cost. Systems range from between $5 a student to $17 a student. One of the systems that we were in discussions with, their product was $17 per student.
And does that come out of your assessment budget?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, I think that's about it. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. All right, we have board members' reports and committee reports at this point. And I always take this opportunity to comment on a interesting education topic of the day. And as you'll recall, about a month ago, the Colorado Court of Appeals upheld the District's Choice Scholarship Program, and we're awaiting final decisions in some quarters on what actions may be taken. But I would like to report, I'm sure a lot of folks saw this, the good news in the state of Indiana, which occurred on March 26th. Apparently the courts move a little bit quicker in Indiana, but they have already reached the state Supreme Court in a unanimous decision, in a landmark legal decision issued March 26th. The Indiana Supreme Court, in a 5-0 decision, held that the state's Choice Scholarship Program, which is actually the same name we chose for our program, does not violate the Indiana Constitution. The court rejected every legal claim brought by the plaintiffs, who were supported by both state and national teachers' unions, who opposed the program, and it ruled in favor of both the state of Indiana and two parents, Heather Coffey and Monica Poindexter, who had intervened in the lawsuit in defense of the program. These parents used choice scholarships to send their children to private schools and were represented in the case by the Institute for Justice, which is also assisting several parents in our program. Today's decision, this is a quote from the Institute for Justice, today's decision is a major and decisive win for Indiana parents and students. In unanimously upholding the Choice Scholarship Program, the Indiana Supreme Court has made it clear that school choice is perfectly consistent with the state constitution. There are 9,000 students currently in that program in the state of Indiana, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Indiana has now established itself as the leading state of the country, possibly alongside Wisconsin, in promoting school choice, and has now in place a tremendous program to give school choice to the kids throughout that state. And I will note that many of the issues in that case were very similar to the ones in the Colorado case. Various provisions in the state constitution that the plaintiffs attempted to challenge the program on religious grounds and other provisions which date back and have a very bigoted history, anti-religious history in this country. And fortunately, the Indiana Supreme Court has ruled that the program is constitutional there, and noted the fact that the dollars flow to the parents, as do the dollars in our Choice Scholarship Program. that's what I have to report this evening. I believe that Vice President Larson has an item that he's like to discuss, and then we'll go around to other members if they have some items to report on.
Thank you, President Carson. Over the last few weeks, an item garnering attention at the legislative level. Oh, by the way, you can pass those. The Senate Bill 213 is a hot item. In fact, there was a long legislative day yesterday. And last Tuesday evening, the DAC hosted Senator Johnson to come up and explain the components of the bill and meet with the DAC panel, a couple board members. There were members in the audience. So actually, if we could indulge, I'd like to invite a couple from the DAC to share their remarks on how the evening went and what was learned, and then we can recap some additional information about the Finance Act. So there's a chart on the wall, but we're not there yet.
Sure.
Hello. Okay, yeah, so the senator came up. It was, he's a great guy, very charismatic, presented it to us. I kind of call it the chameleon bill because it keeps changing. I understand it changed right through to yesterday. At the end, they add things, they snip things, they, whatever. Judy's got some things we liked that we talked about it.
Before we proceed, let's formally introduce David DeCarlo, chair of the DAC, and Judy Reynolds, who's the recorder of the DAC, are going to share some.
This was not, so this was not a normal DAC meeting, so we did not. It was last minute. The senator gave us about 4 days to pick from. That was the one that worked for us. So it wasn't, we didn't have a ton list there. So, Judy, you want to start with the things that we thought were good in it?
Sure. Senator Johnson, I guess, has been working on this for probably well over a year. We appreciate the fact that he recognizes that something needs to change in the way that we fund our schools and the way that we count the number of kids in our seats in our buildings. We also want to thank him for trying to increase transparency and accountability. Those are some of his stated goals with some of the things that he wants to do with the School Finance Act. He also wants to try to fund charters in a more equitable manner across the state. What he talks about reflects very much what's already being done in Douglas County, so it's not something that would really have any effect on us and how our charters are funded, but it would affect how other districts do that. And he also talks about what he calls backpack funding, which is directing dollars to follow the student as opposed to going just to the district. So those were all good points of agreement. Some of our disagreements, though, are things where we find fault with what's actually come out of this, is the new law is just as complicated and convoluted as the current law, maybe even more so. There's a lot of discussion about being fair and equitable about how we fund students, and yet there seem to be a significant number of students that require more funding, that the funding is not fair in any way. When looking at accountability, and one of the questions that I asked him was, what's the penalty? If we're going to give extra dollars for a particular group of students expecting a result, there's a plan in place 4 years down the road to evaluate, but there's no consequence if those goals aren't met. So, we're just going to throw more money into a situation and not necessarily get any result, and if we don't get the result, there's no way to change that process. And lastly, it's just a really bad deal, especially for the students in our district, and for the taxpayers in our district. We're going to be spending huge amounts of money in our increased taxes, and we're getting very little in return. We're funding everyone else, and our students are still going to remain lowest funded in the state, or near the bottom of that funding, especially if what I understand happened yesterday at the Capitol is correct, that floor was taken away, and so we're back down to $6,500 a student.
Let me just add real quick too, he was quick to absolutely say, yes, you are negatives, and yes, you will continue to be them, and yes, we would be asking you for more. And Director Benevento had asked him some direct questions about taking this to our voters, and there wasn't really a good reason beyond what I think Dr. Larson is going to say here.
Well, they took away the floor that existed last week. There's a new floor, but it's now in the basement.
So,
the floor is lower, and so the upshot is that the Douglas County per pupil number under this new formula would be $6,958, which is different than what we saw last week. And you know, this just got to the Senate. It's going to go to the House, and so there's a chance for a lot of moving parts to happen. Although I think the gist of what we have is present. We talked about backpack funding, but unfortunately a lot of the components require that the backpacks be checked at the district door and left there. Because that's, for example, at-risk funding is going to be only differentiated at a district level. It really leaves us in the situation where we have Hope Online kids who are residents in, well, throughout the metro area, but primarily Denver. But they're attending a Douglas County school, and if you're an online student, at-risk doesn't get to apply to you at all. But even if it did, our district's overall disbursement or qualification or numbers of at-risk would be below the minimum level of at-risk funding threshold. Yet, the Title I dollars that follow those kids that are defined at risk go to the Denver School District because that's where they reside. So that hasn't been remedied. And yet someone who's in Denver who's not at risk gets funded with those additional dollars because of the number of kids who are at risk. So if those kids moved around, those dollars would follow them within their district at a higher level, but not so in this district itself. What we have up on the wall, some of you have on your hard copy, this first chart, there's three I'm going to share with you. This first chart is the present day funding system that we have. And this is with the 1994 Act. When you apply all of the factors and scramble them up, and then each district gets a per pupil number. If you take that per pupil number and multiply it by the number of kids, that's the dollars you get under total program funding. Now, if we lived in a world, if we drew a par line, the zero line on this chart is the amount of money that if we took the statewide average per pupil funding, which is projected under the 13-14 school year to $6,603 a kid, that's down in the footnote. And if we took 6,603 and multiplied that by the number of kids in every district, then you compare it to what really you're going to get. Douglas County will get $6,339, not $6,603. If you take that differential, at $265, and multiply it by the number of kids, it shows us being about $16 million short of the funding that if every kid in the state were funded equally, that we would be getting. And so you can see that we have 178 school districts in Colorado. 139 of them fall within $1 million above or below that average funding line. As you go to the left, you'll see 19 or so districts that are funded 1 to 5 million below that average. And then you start seeing another 6 districts that are between 5 and 10. And then 2 big donors, Douglas and Jeffco, that are between 13 and 16 million under that average. Conversely, on the right-hand side, and you'll notice the colors kind of change to reflect the displeasure or the pleasantness of your situation. You've got 11 districts between 1 and 5 million over the average. You've got Aurora at 10 million over, and Denver getting 31 million above that average. That's today's system. So then for context, the scale, I kept it the same so that you can actually see the magnitude. If you go to the second slide, this is what would be the result under the present momentary version of Senate Bill 13, or 213. So we did actually, now the whole average did go up. I'll explain that in a minute. The whole average does go up. But our position of the average is now not 16 million below it, but about 26 million under it. Now Jeffco even got passed up more, and so they're 33 million below it. What you'll notice is we still have districts to the left and districts to the right, but look at the extremes. They have really stretched. The ones on the left that were below the funding are now even further so, and the ones on the right that were being funded above that, that's been exaggerated even more. Aurora went from being 10 million over to 28 million over. Denver goes from being 30 million to 63 million over. So these disparities have been, in some cases, about doubled. And then if you really want to see, the next one just puts both situations, the current and the proposed bill on the third slide, puts them side by side. So you can just see the effect and the impact of Senate Bill 213. And I think what these reveal is the degree of inequity between kids in one district and other districts throughout the state. Certainly, there might be needs that are greater in some, but the proxy that's being used to define at risk is simply, and I'm tired of in education us finding easy things to measure, even if they're not the relevant things to measure. We went through that with compensation. We're trying to find relevant things to measure instead of easy things to measure. And similarly at state, to use the proxy of the only thing that defines a kid as being at risk in Colorado is that they qualify for free and reduced lunch and that they're in an English language learning program. Now granted, many of the people that are in those categories are going to likely have some academic needs at risk, but someone who doesn't have those two categories, do all the rest of us have kids that don't have any academic needs? No kids with dyslexia, no kids that are behind in reading, no kids that need numeracy help, no kids that need other kinds of special intervention? I don't think so. But the state is, or the authors of this have chosen to find those easy proxies because I guess they're just easier to measure and use those as a substitute to define who's at risk.
So the new boss is the same as the old boss?
Yeah. So this is the disparity that you can see for the kids. Now, the candy that's going to be used to entice people here is that everybody's funding is going to go up. And that's, of course, true because they're going to fund it with a $1 billion tax increase. So everybody's average can go up. But when you want to look at, okay, so how much new money would this bring to Douglas County? At the moment, under its present version, about $43 million of new education funding in the formula. But that includes about $16 million of full-day kindergarten that we would have to expend some additional costs to be able to provide it. So that's really, it's not a 43 net that we're going to get. But the cost to the taxpayers to get that $43 million, doing it through the statewide system, through a new change in the income tax rate, would be, in my estimation, probably $95 to $100 million or north of that. So that's the trade-off. It hampers local districts' ability at the right time, if they ever did want to go to the community and present a business case, an appeal that has merit to its local community. Local measures are going to be out the window because, one, this is going to be essentially a 20% increase in your, whatever you're paying in income taxes now, you can increase that bill by 20% if this goes through. So that's going to take away resources that you'd have available otherwise. But secondly, it's going to, you're not going to be getting your money's worth. Money's going to be flowing out of Douglas County to fund those districts on the right side of that chart, and people are going to be less inclined to be able to come up with more money to do it. Alternatively, I wish the state would leave the local districts alone, or actually not leave us alone. That's actually what they did over the last 2 years. They only pulled particular districts that they seemed to find of interest. those who might be in favor of this measure. I don't recall the Douglas County Board being consulted. I don't know quite how much Dr. Fagan might have been asked for her opinion on the development of this. Not a lot? Okay. For input into this. And what would be much better is for Douglas County, who we may, as we're looking at our capital needs and things down the road, would want to go to our citizens. I'd much rather be able to say to our citizens, if we need $20 million, it would cost you $20 million, not 60 or 70 or $80 million through the machine called the state capital. So I'm alarmed that this would put in jeopardy future measures that would be right for Douglas County kids and right for Douglas County taxpayers. I hope I didn't equivocate. Are there any questions, others, or comments or remarks?
Director Richardson. I'm struck by the arbitrariness of so many of these numbers, just in terms of their genesis. Was there a study? Was there any empirical data collection, any analysis to determine two numbers, at least two numbers? One, what is the base case cost for an average student, just a non-at-risk student, to educate them in a world-class way? I mean, what is that number? Any rigorous assessment there? And then second, what's the number for an at-risk student? And what's the incremental cost? And is there any science there? I mean, what strikes me about this is it seems to be, these numbers seem to be political, not scientific.
Yes. Yes, so I have not seen anything that shows any study went into any baseline whatsoever. What does it actually cost to educate an average student, much less at risk? Those numbers are driven by the folks they went out and talked to. So, for example, one of the things that came out in our questioning, Director Larson, I'm going to forget the name of the group, so if you would jump in and help me with this. The senator pointed out that not only was Douglas County a net giver, but Denver is, and I let that go for a second, and he said it a second time, and I made sure he understood that while Denver may contribute a lot per capita, the individuals in this community, for example, when we raise $1 of mill levy, we pay 99.9 cents. In Denver, they pay 10 cents. The balance is paid off the backs of their businesses. A Denver citizen, a Denver taxpayer doesn't have as much skin in the game. So that group, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Remember what I'm talking about? The group they went to in Denver, basically it's like their Denver chamber. Oh, they love this. They totally support it because it's going to stop the voters there from passing mill increases that come out of their businesses. That's the base they're going after. They want to win it with the votes in those areas. If you listen to some of the testimonies, that Judy gave, there's rural districts saying, I can't afford to raise the amount of local money that you're going to take away from my district and send to Denver. This is not a Douglas County versus Denver thing. This affects rural districts. This affects Eastern Slope, Western Slope. This affects everybody. And it's all being moved there. We're going to study this, or we're going to reflect back on the return on investment in 4 years, and what's then the answer? Another one of these that tilts it even more. That's how this happens. Continue to move money from the suburbs, and in this case, from the rural areas, up into the urban areas. But there is absolutely no standard we're driving to. There is absolutely nothing in the way of penalty if you don't succeed. So what I said to the senator is, I look at education as a four-legged table. You have the parent leg, the student leg, the funding leg, and the school, teacher, staff leg. And what you're asking us to do is to fix a leg that's anemic somewhere else with money from here, to make one of our legs anemic to build up one of theirs. So what happens is you create two tripods and they're both going to fall over because money can't fix the missing leg there. And there's no response to that. Well, okay, back to my graphs. It doesn't fix anything.
The other question I have is just in terms of the algorithm, if you can discern one, for allocation of dollars to at-risk students. as I understand it, some of those dollars strictly follow the student, but some of the dollars, they essentially get a bonus if they happen to be a student in a district that has, that crosses yet another arbitrary number, some threshold that has become politically meaningful of total population of at-risk students. So some at-risk students in favored districts, politically favored districts, get more money than at-risk students in disfavored districts. Is that,
yes.
Is that correct? And this is all driven by a district level integer, not what the needs of the student.
It's not student need based, it's threshold and district number based. So our percentage doesn't, that percent, which somewhere between 9 and 11, wherever it is, doesn't require any extra funding because of the balance of the district. The other ones do, apparently.
Director Richardson, I will point out that it's actually a radical and complex formula in the literal sense. There's a square root in the formula, and the initial version had a mistake that created the possibility for a negative number in the radical, which would have made it a complex number. So,
well, I must say that when you have a square root in the equation, that must mean it's right.
Yeah. This didn't change anything. This just did more. That's why I said new boss is the same. It just said, what's wrong, do more of it.
Well, again, you know, I individually am elected to represent and look at the best interests of the children in the school district and the taxpayers who fund the school district. And there are several bullets to how Douglas County is disadvantaged in this formula. And as you can see, it already was the case, but they've exaggerated the factors to move more of the funding into factors that exclude Douglas County. So the at-risk numbers at the district level. The exclusion of online kids that we've stepped in and brought a program, taken over the whole online program. They're going to get a flat dollar. There's no extra at-risk money, and they're only funded at the base. There's not a single other factor involved in that. Then, once all that crunching has been done, they're looking at each district's median income, and they're going to do this every 6 years, and determine your district's median income compared to the statewide median income, and essentially use, I guess there's no better way to put it, means testing, to say if your district has more income, then you can afford less backfill from the state, so that's what's going to happen, and that's what drove these numbers down. And it drove them down so far that there was hue and cry, not just from Douglas County, because if it wasn't just Douglas County, it would have been ignored. But there were enough other districts that were heard that they decided to put a floor. So there's a floor funding level that will come into play, and we're one of those districts that will be funded at the floor. Then on top of it, the funding to bring the revenues necessary to bring into this are going to be income tax driven, and there's 27 different versions that have been filed for consideration. Most of them are variants of just about 2 or 3. But when they settle in, if they even go just to the flat tax rate, your tax rate would go up from 4.63% income tax to 5.35 at the very minimum. There's other plans that have it going from 475 to a certain amount of income, 5, 5.5, 6, up to a high of 6.9 once you're above $200,000. That is going to create an additional swing that presently Douglas County provides 9.5% of the state's income tax collection. We have 7.5% of the state's kids, and we receive about 6.75% of the state funding. So, again, that's why numbers like truly the cost of this should have passed, and one of these measures of funding, we're talking about near $100 million of additional taxes, and that's why all of the levers only crank out $43 million in new funding for Douglas County.
So yeah,
not even close.
A negative ROI that one wouldn't normally see in a viable organization. The last question I have is really this. it strikes me that there are some good things about this bill, notwithstanding the sort of baggage we have. We've identified in the last half hour, or as they say in Iowa, the luggage. I do admire the bill's effort to get rid of this anachronistic count day system, which is just, I mean, every time I think of count day, I think of, there's this magical day, and of course 2 years ago they picked Rosh Hashanah as the day to count students, which was a brilliant move. I have this concept of a bureaucrat with an abacus, translating count day into some sort of meaningful financial allocation mechanism. But we've been saying here for some time that a much more artful and accurate, and in a day of vast computing power with cheap memory, of really, there's no reason we can't daily measure attendance and come up with a much more robust and resilient and accurate understanding of student attendance and therefore funding than count day. And this bill does, as I understand it, go a long way to improving that. Am I right?
Yeah, it definitely makes an attempt in that direction to try and get a more representative count of what's really going on, to allow for people to move even within schools or districts and be counted as those changes occur. So I think that, yes, that's one of the positives that's come out of this. But I'm not sure that it's worth $1 billion increase in our taxes across the state.
And certainly they could carve that component out and implement that. That would be a wonderful, welcome change. Not only do they do this more frequently, Director Richardson, but it's still lagged by a year. So any signal you're looking for would take a little longer to.
Yeah, eventually we want to have a system, it seems to me, that measures in more frequently than once per year attendance at schools, so that if there's change in attendance at schools, gaining schools get a revenue reward reflecting the fact that they have a new student, and they get a signal from the market, attaboy, you've gained a customer. And the losing school has a revenue impact from the loss of that student, and begins to get everyone in a conference room and try to understand what happened, how do we get the customer back, what do we do to keep our parents happy with our performance. And so if you measure daily attendance, you will measure changes more frequently in movements of students between schools, which really isn't that significant. It's surprisingly not that significant in our district, but it does send a signal at the margin to a school that's gained a student. You're doing something well because you've attracted a new customer, and to the school that loses a student, there's a revenue impact, and my goodness, we're going to have to figure out what to do.
I guess I'll wrap my remarks by saying, a couple of years ago, when I ran to join this board, and prior to that, I was no stranger to this room. I was here frequently, and I spoke up quite outspokenly several years ago about our district needing to look at ways of getting additional funding. So I understand the realities that at some point we have to look at that. This threatens that. And in fact, this reminds me of in 2011 when we had 103 and we had a 3A and 3B and we were comparing them. And I said, I'll say it again. 3A and 3B measures are like home equity loans. You're investing in your own, you're keeping all your dollars invested in your home district, and the reward, if you're using them wisely, is that your values of your property go up with the improvements and the continuing acceleration of your district. Whereas this is 103 on steroids. So if you do this kind of a mechanism, this is no longer, this isn't the high interest credit card, this is the payday loan with a loan shark ready to break your knees behind you if you can't pay back. So for those that want to fund our district, and I certainly want to be able to do that. I want to keep us competitive, and I want to keep us well funded. But we're going to be threatened from being able to do that locally in the future if this kind of measure goes through. And I hope that my remarks, while very strong tonight, I want to make sure they're understood and heard by the Douglas County community. Both parents of kids in these schools, seeing their kids get shortchanged by this, and seeing Douglas County taxpayers see that this is, well, to borrow a metaphor we've seen demonstrated, this is the actual enactment of that gorilla picking your pocket and moving it away. So I think we have to stand up, and whether we do something formally tonight or stay tuned as this develops and moves through the rest of the legislature, I think we have to be very diligent at protecting our children and our citizens in how we fund education.
Well, when I look at that distribution chart, I'm tempted to paraphrase a great line from George Orwell's Animal Farm. All of the children are equal, but some are more equal than others. Any other comments on that before we move to the next topic? All right, next is, or do we have any other board liaison committee report? Okay, next is public comment. During the public comment portion of the meeting, members of the public may address the Board of Education on any item on the meeting's agenda. Speakers must complete a public comment form online and submit it electronically to the Board of Education Secretary prior to 3 p.m. on the day of this regularly scheduled board meeting. 30 minutes have been reserved for public comment. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. As a reminder to all present, the board and staff generally do not engage in discussion or Q&A directly with those participating in public comment or with members of the audience. As an additional reminder, only those persons who are called on by the chair to speak during public comment may speak, and we ask that the audience be respectful of the speakers. And so we will start with our first public comment is by Dixie Litzinger, Parker.
Hi, I'm Dixie. I've worked for Douglas County for over 9 years. I just want to bring to your attention some conduct going on at the school that I was working at, which is Summit View Elementary School. I was written up twice, told I was written up 3 times, but discussed it with Debbie McGee and we figured out it was only 2. One of the write-ups was about me pushing a student up against the fence. After this write-up, the guardian of the student, the nurse, nobody was notified of any of this, which makes, I mean, I know I didn't do it, makes me think that it ties into, on that same day I was told I could not take a leave of absence to teaching, that I would have to quit my job. I told them that I couldn't quit my job, I didn't have enough money to do it. I do have a letter here that explains it a whole lot more in detail. Gosh, 2 minutes. Let me see. I do believe that all of this that came about all of the things that I would like to discuss came about because my daughter, who has custody of a child, and Amy Holton, who is the special ed teacher at this school, did not get along. They're both special ed teachers. I was caught in the middle. I was told this by Michael Risden, who's the assistant principal, several times. Mike told me that he felt sorry for me, that I was a good employee. And I just want you guys to follow up.
All right, thank you. The next speaker is Susan Meek from Highland Drainage.
Good evening. I'm pleased to speak to you tonight on behalf of the Strong Schools Coalition. The Douglas County School District Strategic Plan outlines specific commitments to its stakeholders. To parents and families, there is a promise to value parents' ideas, opinions, concerns, knowing they have an understanding of how issues and events affect their students and families. To the community, it commits to engaging our community members as partners and providing a world-class education for our students. The Strong Schools Coalition recently conducted a public survey asking 3 questions: whether the board fulfills these commitments, how the board currently demonstrates its value, that it values public input, and what recommendations the public would like to make to the board. We received 235 responses from parents, teachers, and community members. 14% of respondents agree that the Board of Ed fulfills their commitment to stakeholders. More importantly, we would like to share the recommendations submitted by the public. Tonight I submit a 43-page document providing all comments and recommendations provided to us. In addition, we've summarized the responses and provided our own recommendations in the attached 1-page summary document. Communication combined with collaboration can only benefit our students. The strategic plan indicates that the district is committed to engaging all stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, and community members, and providing them the opportunity to share their ideas, voice their concerns, and work together to find solutions to improve the quality of Douglas County schools. The Strong Schools Coalition is committed to working with the Board of Ed and School District to find solutions that will ensure these commitments are being fulfilled to the satisfaction of the entire Douglas County community. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we have Gary Colley from Parker.
Good evening. I'm addressing an issue that's kind of the elephant in the room. I do appreciate the conversation about funding that Kevin and the DAC presented. Here's my point. How can a climate of trust and mutual cooperation be restored between the district and the parents, staff, and members of the community that you are elected to serve? How can the Douglas County School District, Dr. Fagan and the leadership team demonstrate legitimate transparency throughout the community? And also the fact that the directors can't improve the climate in the district and continue the same path that they're on. Growth means change. Change means challenging the status quo. I have some comments here that I'll leave with you to look at, specifically directed to board members and their actions with the community. If I have time, I'll read some of that. But as far as the directors improving the climate in Douglas County School District, we have some ideas. One is to demonstrate an ability to openly engage constructively with the community you serve. We've asked this a few times. Maybe Kevin could run public comment and you could actually dialogue with community members and instead of being afraid of it. Second, to stop the attacks on individuals who don't support your views. I've been attacked, and you can continue to attack. It won't change my views, but that needs to stop. We ask that you demand better communication results from the superintendent and her leadership team. there should be feedback coming back from the community that can help you improve. But you gotta actively solicit that. Present information to the public in a factual manner that can't be refuted. Show a willingness to adjust your agenda to gather that community support. I'll wrap this up with you are elected to serve this community, not push an educational reform agenda that is driven by outside sources of Douglas County. And the reason Indiana uses the same term is because they listen to ALC too.
Next is Francine Thompson from Harvard.
Good evening. Normally I'm better prepared, but tonight I'm not so prepared. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to Director Silverthorne for helping to take care of the transparency where we had the lower grade, and she worked on getting that rating up to an A just by correcting the outdated and misinformation. I would also like to point out on that site that before she got involved, that DCF was listed as the teachers union. It is no longer there. That made me happy. In reference to what Mr. Colley just said about communications and Susan Meek and the survey that they did, I would like to say that I was one of the 13% that took that survey who think that you do a fine job when it comes to communication. I would also like to point out that I appreciate the newsline, I appreciate the town halls, I appreciate the fact that if I ever want to speak to any of you, you're just a phone call away, and that you're always happy to have a cup of coffee. And I am sure that you extend that same invitation to those people who might not always agree with you. Anyhow, thank you and keep up the good work.
All right, we have David DiCarlo from Highlands Ranch, who's the final commentator.
David DiCarlo from Highlands Ranch, representing 5660 East Wickerdale Lane. Has anyone seen this? Get a zoom in on that there. See that? More dribble on doorsteps. So let me read a little bit of this to you. Actually, I've got to pull my picture of it up that's a little bit more clear. There's so much wrong with this flyer that comes from Douglas County classrooms, and I have been told, and it is available to see on the public social media site, that Douglas County classrooms pulled this information from the Strong Schools Coalition website. It says that the Douglas County Board of Education voted to lower graduation requirements. Well, that's true. Prior to the 2009 election, that absolutely happened, but it's a flagrant attempt to mislead and scare voters about our current board and our current leadership. It also says that in 2012, our schools lost their most distinguished accreditation as given by the Colorado Department of Education. Well, that happened in 2010. Anybody remember 2010? We have a cadre of things that were going on. And as soon as my iPad works with me, I will tell you what some of them were. Senate Bill 163, Education Accountability Act of 2009, which changed the accreditation process and the way things are measured. Senate Bill 191, which was ripping over the landscape and causing a lot of commotion with teachers, staff, and folks from one end of the state to the other. And let us not forget rescission. Not recession, rescission. We got both at once. The dollar was worth less, there was littler of it, and we had to send some back to the state. All impacting the local community, none of which was in the control of this newly elected board at that time. These flyers are garbage. They're all over the place, and they're from the folks that claim to want to have communication, claim to want to have transparency, claim to want to have an open dialogue. Well, I'm yet to see that. Before we can do that, we have to have honest facts and presentation thereof, and that's not what's being dribbled all over doorsteps across this county. So, every time I get one of these, I will come and explain what is exactly wrong with it and why. And I will continue to do all the things I do to make sure the public actually knows what's going on, because this isn't it. Thanks for all you're doing. Keep it up.
All right, thank you for that. And I would like to make a comment. often reflect on some of the rhetoric we hear, but I like to judge institutions by results, not by rhetoric. And another result was reported in our local newspaper just recently, that for the second time in 2 years, Kids Count in Colorado reported that Douglas County is #1 in the state for child well-being. This is based on 12 indicators, a major one of which is education. In a marketplace in the state, we're the fastest growing major school district. People are moving here and sending their kids here from all over the state. We have the highest performance in the state. We deliver it, as Director Larson has very well pointed out, at the lowest per pupil dollars of any school district, major school district in the state. So judging by the results and not the rhetoric, I would say things continue to look pretty good. Very good. All right, the next item on the agenda is our acceptance of the agenda. And I will make a motion to accept the agenda as is, with the exception of item 18, which we will postpone to a future meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Carson, seconded by Mendoza. Benevento?
Aye.
Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne?
Aye.
William?
Aye.
All right, now we have the adoption of the consent agenda. And I think you've all had a chance to take a look at the various items on there. Are there any reports on that? I know we have some fiscal oversight committee membership additions and some an intergovernmental agreement with Parker. Everything in line? All right then. Do I have a motion to approve that? A second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Larson, seconded by Director Williams to adopt the consent agenda. Benevento? Director Benevento, is adoption of the consent agenda. Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne?
Aye.
Williams? All right, before we adjourn, I wanted to mention that Nona has been circulating some potential dates for the summer board retreat. I think we were looking at some early dates in June. That's one possibility. She may circulate some other dates. I think we're still a little ways out from nailing anything down, but we will cancel the first meeting of June. And a couple of folks have mentioned to me they have conflicts then, so we'll have a board meeting this second period in June, but we'll likely have a retreat sometime in that early summer period. So just kind of give folks a heads up on the June schedule. And I think most of the members were okay with June, but maybe there was one. There was some travel potentially. Okay, we'll keep exploring some dates there in the June time period before summer gets too crazy.
Yeah, and just a question about venue. I do think it's appropriate to mention this. I think in the way that this board approaches retreats, as opposed to boards in the past, which retreats in past boards often took place in interesting locations like Vail. our retreats tend to be within yards of I-25 and tend to be donated by companies, and they're very much working retreats. So when people hear the word retreat, I hope they understand this is a board that's committed to putting every dollar in the classroom and not somewhere else.
Well, I think Nona was aware of that when she jokingly put a flyer in my brochure for a Reinventing Your School Board retreat in Rancho Mirage, Palm Springs, California, as a possible June board retreat location. All right, I think that is everything I wanted to mention on the scheduling. Any other items? If not, I'll make a motion.
President Carson, this is Doug.
Yes.
I had a little trouble hearing Mr. DeCarlo, but I think the issues that he raised have been answered in an email from Dan McMenemy, and we may want to make that email available to people so that, you know, the facts as they've been laid out by the Strong Schools Coalition can be addressed in the email that Dan sent out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Director Benevento. Thanks for raising that. We are going to put that information out on the website and get that distributed out through the community, because we, in the media, we want to make sure folks get accurate, factual information. Thank you for raising that. Any other items? All right, I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Motion by Carson, second by Richardson. Benevento?
Aye.
Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne?
Aye.
Williams? We are adjourned at 8:35.